Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeff Dunphy. This is the Joy Class Open House for Thursday, September 12th. Let me plug this in. Sorry, let me plug this in. I've got to rejig this for a second, um, and then I've got to. Okay, so now we're going to um, we're going to see what we can do to okay, Eric's back in. There we go.
Oh, hello.
There you go. It's lovely to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with the sentiment that you were sharing earlier that the times are changing and the times are changing quickly. So the opportunity to get on the bus is slowly but surely shrinking.
Yeah. I mean, I do think in all fairness, I do think that there's this is a very important time, and it's also a very important time to reconnect with your higher self, if you will. And now let's see if let's hold on for a quick second. Let's stop this. Let's see if we can go to. Okay, can you see that screen there, Eric?
Yes, the
Okay,
main
the
screen of the
main screen.
slideshow.
Okay. So one of the things that and I will, if Eric is going to be the lone participant on here, I'm going to ask him to engage in what we're doing. We're having a big live open house here in Calgary, but one of the things that's happening right now is the world, in essence, is sort of coming apart at its seams, and I think there's a big call for people to sort of step up and step in. We're seeing a lot of very, I don't know if you will, but discombobulating things going on in the world. And I think this is the time when we kind of stand up and reclaim our sovereignty. So I want to share with you that here is the planet. There is some force. I don't know whether it is God's hand or somebody's large hand that it is in. There's great collaboration going on with something of a um, beneficent hand. And I think there are things unfolding right now that, on one hand, look profoundly good and kind and gracious and full of love. And on the other hand, it looks like the bad guys are kind of coming apart at the seams. Now, that's one perspective. This concept of retooling for our coming of age came to me as a very young man, when I was in my 20s. And it is, in essence, it's drawing tools into oneself that can serve you into discovering who you truly are. And who you truly are probably isn't who you think you are, you know? So Eric, why don't you read this?
I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted and behold, service was joy. Uh, is that Tagore or Tagore?
Tagore, yeah. So one of the things that happens in parenthood, it happens when you have a child and you look into the child's eyes and you realize that your life is not your own. And as a teacher, you look into the eyes of your students and you realize that your students' discovery of their own selves is so profoundly um, gifted with joy. And I think there's something about this, and this is one of the reasons we've called the joy material or the joy class joy for, I'm coming into 40 years teaching this. Now, this is another one that, Eric, I'd like you to read because I think it's very important.
Happiness is not attained through self-gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose.
So here we have a declaration that we've been socialized and like brainwashed or hypnotized into this belief that you are healthy, happy, and in alignment when your entire modus operandi or raison d'etre, reason to be, is full of self-gratification. Just another bottle of beer, just another toke, just another big loud movie, just another coffee, just another something, that it's all about self-gratification. And I think one of the things that is happening right now is we're starting to see at this moment this profound departure from me to us. And I think it probably behooves us to pay attention to that. Okay. Now, Eric has seen this before, ladies and gentlemen, but what if you actually had an owner's manual? Now, part of the ancient tradition and part of the ways that the masters of old participated in illuminating the youth of the time was to give them tools, retooling, that would illuminate their own self-discovery. Now, as Plato was wont to say, and we've seen this everywhere, is there's four big questions, and the questions are: who am I? Where do I come from? Why am I here? And what now? Now, there's an aspect that the ancients spoke of, but it isn't really elaborated upon too much. And it is, they had a methodology where they said to you, if you want in, bid us come in. Ask and the door shall be opened. Ask and you shall receive. All of that. But this is akin to this phrase, which I very much am aligned with and delighted by. And that is, when you start this investigation with somebody who has the keys to your own self-discovery, it's like bringing somebody into your own house that you've been in for 20 or 30 or 40 years and having them show you rooms that you've never seen before, you weren't even aware of. And that's what the ancient teachings do. They bring you into a space that says, alas, I had no idea that I can go and play in this self that I am here to discover or rediscover or reclaim. And it is magnificent. And the ancients and the ancient teachings, and what we propagate in retooling, is methodologies where you can discover your own owner's manual and you can climb into it, where you augment and elaborate on your own self-discovery. Now we're currently in an enormous war of stories. Some would call this a psyop. Some would call this the bad guys versus the good guys, the black hats and the white hats. Some would call this the definitive unfolding of a cycle, where the cycle of the bad guys sort of wears out and evil within itself has the seeds of its own destruction. We may be seeing right now the dark hats, the black hats, their stories starting to have less and less influence on those who wish to wake up. And in this slide, we say, like, one side is trying to terrify us into destroying ourselves. be afraid and then obey. And the other side is trying to terrify us into saving ourselves. There should be no terror in your own journey of self-discovery. This is, granted, not an easy task, but it's a relatively simple task in there's something inside each and every one of you that is profoundly aligned with your higher self, your brilliance, your genius, as some would say. And I think this is the time to discover it. Consent through compliance. I mean, what does this mean? We have, and we're starting to see through the veil, we're starting to see through the story, through the nonsense. We're starting to see that the powers that be, the mainstream media and all the nonsense that's going on, they want you to acquiesce to their guidance. And they want you to do this through being afraid. And so consequently, kind of giving up your sovereigns, giving up your independence to comply or to become obedient. And I think with most of our audience and most of those who we wish to reach with this message is you are a sovereign being. There's something very magic about you. And to deny it or to ignore it is at your own peril. And I think we are beyond this nonsense of compliance. This is my wife, as Eric knows, and we have a little bit of a vignette here that I want you to listen to, okay? Whoops.
No matter how far you've traveled in circles, on other people's detours, adopted as your own, regardless of how much time you may feel you've wasted playing small or hiding away, in spite of the static that may pervade the space between you and the naked truth of your being, you are here to be a gift. You came into this world carrying a flame that cannot be extinguished. It is the same light that lives at the center of all things. To be here now means that you carry ingredient in your depths that is needed by the soul of the world. You are the only one who brings what you bring in the exact way that you bring it. Hidden within you is a balm of renewal, the sacred imagining of a new way, a golden thread woven by the hand of God. You carry an ancient key that cannot be warped by time or distorted by the heat of a world gone mad. At your innermost core echoes the resounding answer to our time's most pressing questions. Within you lives a treasure that awaits, not your voyage of discovery to distant lands, but your stillness and sinking into the rich ground of your being. Entry will cost you no less than everything inauthentic. You may have to burn your house to the ground before you can see the stars. At the deepest root, you'll find a spring dripping nectar, the pilot light of your existence, a north star closer to you than the sound of your own heart beating, a divine spark tenderly aching for its liberation. It is the light of your inimitable gift, waiting to be given to the world it was always destined for.
Pretty magic stuff. We want you to hear absolutely unequivocally that each and every one of you are a profound gift to mankind. And as you awaken and as you rediscover who you are. There is a place in your own inimitable consciousness that knows this. And now, as we start to play, as we start to unfold our awakening, there's a reason it's called the time of revelation. We bid you ask the question, who am I? Why am I here? Where do I come from? And what's next? Now we ask this question. Imagine a world in which everyone is conscientious, caring, and responsible. And we would like you to engage that, embrace that, hold that in your field of consciousness. Because there's something about this time that is, on one hand, bereft of kindness, bereft of ease, bereft of gentleness. And there's this other aspect of it that says, everything's going to be okay. And the good guys are going to win. And I think it's very important for everyone to remember that we are at the dawn of a golden age. And this golden age is your rightful heritage. And the bad guys are not going to win. Now, we bid you do this because I think it's very important for everybody to do it. And it is this. It is finding the quiet, finding that gentle space in a day, whether it's in the shower, whether it's sitting on the toilet, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's meditating, whether it's aligning yourself with some piece of music, it's finding the quiet. And we say this is the more quiet you become, the more that you hear, the more that you get, the more that you download. And what we're here to do is we're here to provide you with tools that will launch you into the next vibratory orbit that is your destiny, that is your sovereignty. Yeah, this is a slide I've shown for a long time. And it is very germane right now in this time. So Eric, I'll give this to you. You want to go?
Our education system, everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid.
How many of you have participated in a life where you haven't felt like you fit in? You haven't felt like you were intelligent. You haven't felt like you were smart. You haven't felt like you belonged. And this is very common for those who are kind of here to change the system. Each and every one of you has a brilliant gift, as we just heard Marie-Ève profess in her offering. Our education system has to end. The education system that is currently in place is self-destructing. It's full of preposterous notions that feed or lead away from our own sovereign brilliance. And we're here to change that. This is a little boy. This is a little boy. Unfortunately, this isn't making manifest. This kid is 4 or 5 years old, and he plays Mozart with a brilliance that is absolutely dumbfounding. And unfortunately, this presentation is not allowing him to play. However, he's 5 years old, and he plays so extraordinarily well that he defies reason. Everybody goes, how in goodness gracious me can he be so extraordinarily brilliant? Each and every one of you has within you this genius. It may not present itself in musical genius. It may present itself in any other way, but you are all brilliant in your own way. Now, here's a slide that I've been showing for a long time, and it is every bit as germane now as it has been for eons, and that is truth. One is relative, truth is relative, and it is also dependent upon where you sit. One's a square, one's a circle, one's a triangle. They're all true. However, how is it that we play this game, and how is it that we choose to look at the world? And when we choose to look at the world through eyes unclouded by longing, through eyes unclouded by the presupposition that we're so invested in being right that we can't entertain another perspective, there is nothing we cannot change but for a change in perspective. And I would bid that you would entertain that we can, and you can, change your perspective. Now, this is from George Bernard Shaw, and he talks about all great truths begin as blasphemies. The world is flat. Well, maybe not. Maybe the world is round. Well, we've now got the world is flat again. There's all sorts of things that lend themselves to reinvestigation and reacquainting. And do you have the capacity to suspend disbelief? Can you actually say, well, just a second, maybe I can hold two thoughts that are contradictory of one another in the same moment and not give either the tag of being correct? That's a very important place to be in this time of self-discovery. Now, we happen to be quite diligent followers of a guy named, we call him Doc Hawkins, but his name is David Hawkins. He's a MD and a PhD in medicine, and he's created a map of consciousness that we propagate, and we very much embrace and recognize that his contributions to mankind are absolutely extraordinary. And it is in this pursuit that we will share with you over the course of our semester, this upcoming semester. Now, this is a face that some of you, when you're watching this video, may find as familiar. This is the name of the master who we call Dwal Khul. Now, Dwal Khul has been around for a long time. He is a profoundly loving and gracious master teacher, and he has brought about into mankind a series of books and a series of dispensations that have been incredibly contributory to mankind's evolution. Now, this is Helena Blavatsky, and she is also a member of those who choose to illuminate the way or the path for mankind. And she and Dwal Khul worked diligently together. And she was the writer of a series of books, two great tomes, one called Isis Unveiled and another called The Secret Doctrine, both of whom set the world on its ear intellectually because they brought into light certain things that had previously not been given an audience. Now, this is Alice Bailey. Now, Alice had an interaction with Dwal Khul, where Dwal Khul sort of pitched up and said, would you help me in writing a series of books? And Alice at the time said, well, just a second, I'm not sure. And DK, Dwal Khul, he said, well, hold on for a second, just help me write a paragraph. And so they wrote a paragraph together, and Alice went, oh, wow. Then they wrote a chapter together, and Alice went, oh, wow. And then Alice became engaged in realizing that there was some serious information to be disseminated. And so they collaborated on writing. They wrote 25 books together, 18 of which he telepathically dictated to her, and the other 7 she wrote on her own as a result of her studies. Now, this is a picture of Dorothy Gates, who I traveled all over the world with. I was a student of hers for probably 14 years until she left this domain. And we traveled all over the world. We traveled to Egypt, we traveled to Peru, India, Nepal, all over. And she was a very gifted and connected soul. Now, this was one of her teachers, Douglas Baker. Now, Douglas Baker, born in 1922, orphaned when he was 16 in 1938. So he joined the British military, and he went into the tank brigade, and he fought in the Second World War. Again, a very gifted individual, profoundly intelligent, and he was inclined and was reached out to, or rather he reached out to Dwal Khul when he was in his 30s, and DK engaged with him and gave him all kinds of gifts and all kinds of directions. Now, Douglas Baker is a profound and prolific author. He's written 100 books. He was sort of the next iteration of Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, and then Douglas Baker. And he is arguably one of the great contributors to the illumination of mankind in the works that he's done. He's written 100 books. Now, sitting next to him is a woman whose name is Dr. Kamla Datlai. And she was a great friend and a collaborator with DB, with Douglas Baker, back in their early days in the 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s. And she just so happened to be the grandmother of my son-in-law. And a short period of time ago, 14, 13, 12, 15 years ago, we met in London. And she was the grandmother of my son-in-law. And I walked in the door. She came to the door when I walked in the door. I walked in the door, and we looked at each other like two star-crossed lovers, where she was 90 at the time, almost. And we just looked at each other like long lost companions. And she was a frail woman. She weighed all of 100 pounds, but absolutely brilliant. She was a physician and a very advanced herbologist and a very advanced yogini as well. And we spoke for hours at this dinner with her children. And it was very, very magic. And I felt it felt very timely that we would meet again in this time. We spoke of all sorts of things, and one of the things that I shared with her was these joy offerings, which are ancient. These transcend time. They are teachings that transcend thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of years. And they are the ingredients and the recipe to one's own self-emancipation, but also one's self-discovery. And it is in these offerings that we bring to the table at this period of time, during this very magic time when the dark is moving out and the light is moving in, this material. Now, we talk about Socrates saying learning is remembering, and teaching is merely helping one to remember. And as we tuck into remembering your own brilliance, your own engagement in connecting to that genius within, you start to realize that there's way more to this than meets the eye. Now, behind these Behind this picture, you can see two vans. And in these vans, I brought people to the south of France. It is a very sacred place and a very place close to my heart. And we brought them to the south of France to visit the aromatherapy, the essential oil business, but also to experience the spiritual nature of this sacred land. And one of the things that we did in this field is full of lavender, as you can see, is we asked them to come out and listen. Listen to what is going on. Listen to what you hear Mother Nature speaking of. And what did transpire in this time, when they got quiet enough, they could hear something. And in their hearing of what was going on, they could hear the buzzing of the bees. Now, at first, they couldn't hear it. What do you hear? What do you hear? Nothing, nothing, nothing. You know, in the summer, this was in June or July, but in the summer, you can feel the heat in the south of France, and you can see the rippling of the heat waves over the land, and it's magic, and as we've all seen it from time to time. And you could hear them going, I don't hear it, I don't, and then they go, oh, right, I get it. I get it. I can hear the buzzing of the bees. And so once you tune in to hearing the buzzing of the bees, you can't not hear it. It's magic. It's very magic, because once you've tuned into it, you get it and you hear it. Now, the buzzing of the bees, the humming of the bees, is a sacred symbol of one tuning in to one's higher self. It's been taught from time immemorial. And when they got that they could hear the bees, then all of a sudden you could see the bees, and it looked as if God had peppered the lavender fields of bees. It was very magic, very magic. And so we now start to dance in this way of, oh, there's more to this than meets the eye, right? Now, what do we do in this modern day mystery school? What do we do? Well, the mystery schools have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. I know that sounds a bit far-fetched, but at the very least, for 10,000 years, maybe even more, I would suggest even more. And we investigate the mysteries of the mind. We investigate how we have been hypnotized or transfixed or succumbed to a psyop that has precluded us from plugging into our own higher selves, and how the mysteries of the mind, when you discover them by doing your own push-ups, by the way, you start to realize that there's way more to you than meets the eye. And if there's way more to you than meets the eye, there's way more to you to propagate and to develop and to elaborate upon, to bring to bear on your own well-being and the well-being of mankind. Now, we use ancient techniques, and these techniques are clearly thousands and thousands and thousands of years old. And we use Gnosticism, which is the root is knowing, gnowing, and as it brings us to welcoming in the knowledge of the ancients in order to facilitate the emancipation of mankind. Eric, do you want to read this?
The ego is the part of the mind that believes your existence is defined by separation. Being is completely without these distinctions.
Now, in these teachings, in the part of this self-discovery, you start to realize that your ego and your personality is a package in which your genius or your soul has manifested. But your ego and your package, your personality, also has kind of a mind of its own and also has an agenda of its own. And its agenda is to let you know that it is the most important thing. And one of the aspects of our discovery is recognizing that as we retool ourselves, we realize that our Personality is a vehicle through which our soul wishes to express itself. Let me say that again. Our personality is a vehicle through which our soul wishes to express itself. The personality in and of itself, unless connected to that genius, is just a vehicle. It's like getting into your car and sitting in the passenger seat and saying, "Take us away." That isn't the case. Let's remind ourselves that there's something of a far greater nature within you that we want you to discover during this time. Now, the keys to consciousness in all of this is meditation, study, and service. Meditation is getting quiet. We saw the slide a few slides ago. Getting quiet enough to listen to the voice of the silence. The voice of the silence. What a great paradox, right? We study paradox in this work. Study. Guess what? There's lots of stuff to read. And as you read it, it engenders a whole new chapter of discovery. You start to read this stuff and you think, wow, this book was written for me. I'm reading this book and I can't put it down. Magic, magic, magic. And the other is service. Now, years ago, when I was a professor at the University of Calgary, I used to sit down with a student body and I used to say, if there was one question you could ask of any great teacher, any great master, any great brilliant genius, any time in history, whether it was Jesus or Buddha or Lao Tzu or Michelangelo or Leonardo, who doesn't matter who, if you could ask them one question, what would that question be that would change your life forever? And I used to leave that with them. I didn't used to give them the answer. And these students, as I am wont to work in the wee hours of the night between 1 and 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, they would be texting me, these engineering students and these commerce students, they'd be texting me on their phone. They'd be texting me at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning saying, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? I text them back right away. And they go, whoa, who are you? What are you awake? I mean, I'm cramming for exams. I'm doing all this stuff. And I go, that's a brilliant question, but it's not the question. And what would happen over a period of days is that the entire student body would be asking about the question. And then somebody would stand up and say this: how can I be of service? And everybody in the lecture hall would go, of course, yeah. And you could see everybody going, that's it. Now, the context of service is very broad ranging. How can I be of service to my body on how I eat and how I exercise? How can I be of service to my emotions? How can I be of service to my mind? How can I be of service to my higher self, my genius? How can I be of service to my siblings, to my parents, to my children, to my partner? How can I be of service to the community I live in, to the city I live in, to the country I live in, to the hemisphere I live in? How can I be of service to mankind? All of these, they lend themselves out like a fan, like the fan of a peacock. How can I be of service? And the service that is the most important is the service to your higher self, the gift you are destined to be, as we just heard Marie-Ève speak to just a few moments ago. This is who you are. This is the brilliance of who you are. And this is why you're here. There are things to be done by you, done better by you than anybody else in the world. And we would like you to tuck in, join us, recognize that there are things for you to do that will change the very fabric of the world. You are all part of a great cosmic orchestra, and you have a very important part in that orchestra. Step up, play it, participate. What we do is we attend to the cosmic laws, the laws of Mother Nature. We attend to the hermetic principles We attend to esoteric science, and we engage you in discovering how vital and important symbology is in this chapter of your brilliance. Now, classes begin Monday in like 5 days. We go for 12 weeks. We go from 7 to 9 o'clock Mountain Time, whether it's daylight or standard. And what we do is we ask you for a whole $30 a class. We also have all kinds of other offerings. We offer the Egyptian Mystery School. We offer Meeting of the Minds. We have a healing clinic where we do a deep dive into discovering who you are, how you work, how you operate, using ancient techniques. And it brings up a quote from Doc Hawkins, and it's this: it becomes clear that to truly know is to be rather than to know about. It's vital for each and every one of you to remember and know that this is not an intellectual journey. Although there are those participants who are absolutely and extraordinarily brilliant, and I would include Eric in this, that recognize that their brilliance can only bring them so far when their abstract mind, their contemplative brilliance comes from a different space of their intellectual acumen. Now, it's at this time that we would suggest that if this speaks to you and you're ready to dive in, reach out, let us know. We are here to change the world. We are here to change the world with a message that is not well received by those who are indifferent or who are preoccupied or who are subjected to the hypnosis of the current world. And that's fine. We are here in keeping with our directives, and that those directives are: we have a message to present, and we have a message to deliver, but only for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. And it is in that directive we wish to be of service. It's a very magic time. I'm going to read this, Eric.
God does not call the qualified. God qualifies the called.
So what an interesting thought, right? When you are truly called, when you get that there's something for you to do, and when you get that the majesty of your brilliance is being tasked to come forth, to speak, to be seen, to be embraced, to be empowered. This is where you feel and know and understand the meaning of being called. And being called is profoundly felt in the very depths of your being. And this is what we would bid you do. Show up, pitch up, partake. Don't for a second think that your participation is frivolous or meaningless. It is the antithesis of that. Your contribution to this gig is imperative in you carrying out your life call, your soul directives. And when you hear this message and it resonates, pay attention. And this message may not resonate with some, but it will resonate with others. And it is those that this message resonates that we are speaking to. Now, Eric will attest to this, as Eric has been working with me now for some time. Things will not look like you think they should look. They won't look like you think they should look. Is that fair, Eric? It's fair that it looked nothing like you thought it would look, and yet it did address all sorts of things. Is that fair?
I've been surprised beyond my expectations, and I think those expectations are there to be broken so that you can see that they're like artificial barriers that your egoic mind produces, and that the universe wants you to live the story of your life. And if you're trying to dictate that through the egoic mind, it prevents the magic from emerging beyond the control that you're trying to uh, project onto the world around you.
There you go. You got it. And I think one of the majesties of this work, I've been doing it for 40 years. I have never, ever in 40 years felt that I have ever found any wrinkle in the fabric of what the ancients have taught for me to pass along. There's never been any inconsistency. It always presents itself in a manner that seems to be divinely aligned. And there are all kinds of people more wise, smarter, more intellectually spacious than I. But I will say this to you unequivocally, and that is, this is magic stuff, and it is way bigger and way more profound than my puny intellect could even begin to understand. And it is in that offering that I, as a servant of these ancient teachings, would bid you to join us. Come and join us. Come and partake. Come and partake once a week for 12 weeks. Yep, it's a while. And yep, it's big. And yep, it's profound. And yep, anybody who has attended these classes, anybody and everybody that I've taught for 40 years, so there's thousands, not a single one of them who have partaken in all of them have walked away without saying they changed their life. I would bid you join us. We've been doing this for a while. This is the time when the world will change the most of the past 100 or 200 years, and in the next 100 or 200 years. This is a very profound time in the evolution of mankind. And if you feel called to this, I would bid you partake. And I would bid you partake because the world needs you. The world needs your contribution. The world needs your brilliance. The world needs your genius. Let us show you and let us share with you the ancient teachings that these great sages of yore have brought to light to emancipate and to illuminate mankind. And we are honored to be merely instruments of the divine to share and propagate this information. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your insight. And I will open the floor for questions if there are any, to see if we can answer them, and otherwise I will bid you adieu. Eric, you good? Wonderful. Patricia, how about you?
I just had a question. I didn't have time to see the times when it's gonna start. You say for 12 weeks. It's gonna be also every Friday. I just wanna see the details of how is the system.
Every Monday.
Okay.
Run Monday from 7 to 9. And we hold it on Zoom, and we hold it live as well. I have a teaching theater here in Calgary, and we gather every Monday from 7 to 9.
Okay. So, but I will be by Zoom, right?
And it will also be by Zoom as well, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. And we will also, as Eric does not live here, and you are unavailable this weekend, we'll also be having a live open house here in Calgary in the Lamasery. in 3 days on Saturday. So in 2 days, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, your attention. We are honored and delighted to be of service to you, and we cannot thank you enough for your attention and your attendance.
Thank you. Bye.
Many blessings for all.
Thank you, Jeff.